of the agenda on the back by the door for anybody who doesn't have one. If you'd like one, we've got 2 items on our agenda tonight. First, the South Billings Boulevard Urban Renewal District Expansion Analysis Update. And second, the Urban Renewal District Legislative and Operational Modifications. Before we get into that, though, I'll just remind members of the City Council in particular, with these microphones at the work session, this is where we've gotten complaints that people can't hear us if they're watching on the television. So just encourage you to keep the microphone close to your mouth, speak clearly and into it. Reportedly, a lot of the problem happens when we start turning and then looking at somebody down here and having conversations off to the side. So just try to look straight into your microphone. Nobody will take offense if you're not looking them in the eye when you're talking to them. So with that, before we get to the first item of our regular agenda, the first item we normally deal with is our public comment on all items. For anybody who might be watching and not know, our work sessions are more informal. We generally do not make formal decisions. It's an opportunity just to have a general discussion with the possible exception of giving specific direction to staff. That will often trigger a vote of the City Council. So with that, though, before we open up for public comment on any item, either on our agenda or not, I'll ask our City Administrator if he's got anything in the way of general upfront items. Chris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In brief, yes. So still completely consistent with an email that we all received, you guys as well, from our Parks Rec Director, Gavin Walcher, on Wednesday. We are certainly well aware, unfortunately, of the damage that TDS and their subcontractor has done, not just on some irrigation lines, but some significant service lines. You know, we're talking 6-inch service lines, not just the small stuff, you know, in my yard, your yard kind of thing. Just as Gavin laid out for us, that's exactly the plan that's being pursued. In fact, just this afternoon, they were able to, and we're testing one of the main lines to see if it's been properly repaired. So we are absolutely aware of the situation. Apologize that it took this long to get the attention that was needed, but it is there. And so now we're watching that they follow this plan that they've agreed to. And if they don't follow this plan, we will not wait days or weeks to take the next step. We'll immediately move forward. So just want you to be aware of that accountability, those steps. And I was notified this afternoon that there was an interview with one of the neighbors there along one of the parkland areas with Q2. So I would expect some media coverage probably is happening right now. So just an FYI, no new information, the same as what you received Wednesday afternoon. And we will diligently pursue them repairing and not damaging more lines. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. A question from that,
Chris, what part of town are they working in? Because they did this exactly the same thing last year when we were in the Heights. They were leaving holes. They were going through, destroying a lot of different property underground.
So I'm not sure what area they're in. I can tell you as far as the park areas, it was, well, no, actually it doesn't tell me here.
36th Street West and Silver Street.
Okay, that's certainly one of the main areas where you would see normally, a trail corridor with grass on both sides look like a gravel street. I thought when Deputy Mayor showed me the picture, honestly, I said, Mike, what's the problem? We have gravel streets all over town. It's not a gravel street. It was a park area. So TDS stood in my office. They stood in front of you, committed that they would take care of their work. That'll be my next step. If we don't have the kind of results that they're committing to, is for the TDS person to come out here and talk to us specifically about what has to happen to correct the problems.
But didn't Debbie have TDS in her office talking to them about it, and they're just ignoring the city?
As was given to you guys Wednesday night, their CEC is the sub.
Same one that did the
same sub. They've accepted responsibility. They are working the corrections, and that's and the corrections now that we're dealing with primarily are in parkland areas, not in right of way. which doesn't matter to the to our neighbors and our citizens. They don't care which it's in. But there were some internal hiccups relative to, as well as errors on their part, what they did in easement areas that they shouldn't have been. So bottom line is, Gavin did a great job giving you details. Look at that email. That's exactly what we're following. And if they don't follow that rigid criteria, we'll immediately move forward with what are the next steps then to stop their work.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that report, Chris. Reminder, Councilmember Shaw and Councilmember Owen are online with us. So to them, please put up your little yellow hand when you want to jump in on any comments. And if I fail to see your yellow hand, other council members, please call my attention to that. And if none of us see it, Councilmember Shaw and Owen, feel free to just interject at an appropriate time. So with that, then, we will move on to public comment on all items. There will be an opportunity for public comment as part of items 1 and 2, but if you need to leave and don't want to wait till that, this is your opportunity. Mr. Nelson.
Kevin Nelson, 4235 Bruce Avenue. On item 1, I primarily focus on MCA 715-4221. Since you didn't follow that law last time when you expanded the district, you didn't follow the law. You're attempting to, at least this time, follow the law in the modification of the urban renewal plan. I guess I'll just wait and see if you can follow all the elements of that law and how you're going to abide by those. And if you think we're off base, all you have to do is go back and look at the procedural history in 21 when you expanded the TIF on the south side, and you'll look at the procedural history now, and you'll see it's significantly different. And the law was in place in 17, so nothing has changed. And so we will see how this works out. I got to go.
Very good. Thank you. Any other public comment at this point on items on our agenda or not on our agenda? Is there any other public comment at this time? No one's coming forward. No one's standing up. So we'll close the public comment period. Move on to our first item, which is the South Billings Boulevard Urban Rural District Expansion Analysis. I'll turn it over to Wyeth. Just a bit of a heads up here for the council. Although we don't normally have a specific action item here, I do think that staff is looking for some sort of formal affirmation of this direction, because we now stand to begin a lot of work. And you'll see in your staff report the categories with bullets under next steps and also proposed action schedule. So my recommendation is that if the council wants to move ahead in this direction, that we have a motion indicating that that is the desire of a majority of the council to benefit the staff. Frankly, I think I'll look to somebody from Ward 1, give them the opportunity to make that motion if they're so inclined, because it predominantly in Ward 1, but also it impacts Ward 3. So I think I'll ask for somebody in Ward 3 if there's a second, if we get to that point. I don't want to presume our discussion, but with that, Wyeth, I'll turn it over to you. Wyeth.
All right. Yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. So I'm just going to walk through a few slides that basically follow through from the memo you received and get a little more information to you on where we're at and where we're headed. And as the mayor said, just kind of getting that affirmation to continue moving in the direction we're already going. I did want to mention we do have on Zoom also Brad Archibald with Pioneer Technical Services. His firm has been helping and did the main work to put the findings of blight report together that you received. It was attached to your memo, and we just have completed, which basically is the very first piece of any of these processes, whether you're expanding or creating a district, to first see if it meets the urban renewal state law to do a district and address infrastructure deficiencies and other things within an area. So he's here in case there's questions I can't answer. I'll send him his way and worked through the whole report. So if there's more specific report questions as well. With that, so just briefly on background, the district that we're looking at expanding. The suburb district was first created in 2007. It is set to sunset in 2046, and that's a hard stop now, based on state law and the current bonding that we have in place. So it will end at that point, now, regardless. If we do more bonding, that's still going to be the end date for those bonds. We did an expansion in the district right in 2008, which was actually an adjustment to add some additional area to the southwest of the district, including Elysian School District. And then in 2021, we did a further expansion as well and added 5 more properties in at that time. There's over 2,300 properties in the current district, and the expansion area includes almost 1,600 properties. We're talking from the existing district, a lot of residential, but obviously a lot of commercial in the current South Billings district. When we talk about the area around King Avenue East, South Billings Boulevard, and that area down near the interstate. And the new expansion area is mostly residential, but also around its edges has some significant commercial and non-residential development, as well as obviously the railroad corridor to the north. And there's absolutely redevelopment potential and infrastructure need and potential within this study area that we're talking about. The map that you see on the current screen, and I sent to you also in the packet, that light blue area is what we're calling the study area, which is the area that we have done the analysis on. And that area could stay exactly that, and that's what we move forward with, or the council could choose to reduce its size. But we really went with the full area right to the city limits on the refinery side, right up against downtown and the downtown district on the north, down around the city limits to the south, and then over up against the current district to the south and west and southwest. So that is the area that was analyzed in whole for the effort to move this forward. Just briefly we're following 715-4206 for the definition of blight and the findings. The legislature, as we talked about, those of you especially who were in the legislative committee, the legislature in 2025 did adjust the definition section for blight and the findings and how you look at infrastructure and deficiencies in areas. Those adjustments, for the most part, were actually really didn't impact much the kind of things that we still would look for within an area. And so, but we did follow, obviously, since that law had passed, we went through that process with this analysis and looked at all the different items that are called out in that, in terms of structures that are no longer in function for their original use, and deterioration of buildings and structures and infrastructure. This whole effort involved input from parks on their properties and infrastructure in that area. Public Works Engineering provided information. We had information from Met Transit also that was provided as we put everything together and looked at what the conditions were in that area, as well as analyzing private property and looking at the conditions of private property in the area too, which is part of what Pioneer worked on, aside from the material and information we provided. So we went through this, looked at those the criteria and the things that it needed to show that would qualify, and it clearly, our report demonstrated that the expansion area does meet those statutory requirements. We found a variety of things in the area that would meet that regarding the infrastructure, public infrastructure, unsafe private structures, and then also vacancies of property and buildings in that area. And so it all fits with what you would do to consider creating or expanding a district, and in this case, expansion. So collectively, it all fits together and meets those requirements that are needed to move forward with this. And it really, by obviously including this area in a district, then provides that tool for the city to be able to go in and do improvements within that area, utilizing the TIF provision of the urban renewal plan law, and also follow that with an update to the urban renewal plan, which is a big part of what we'll have to do here in the next steps. So just briefly, I wanted to touch base on the stakeholder input and that piece of this, because this is really important. And has become more important over the last several legislative sessions in terms of making sure that the different taxing jurisdictions are involved and aware of what a municipality is doing if it's either creating or expanding a district. So obviously the South Billings Urban Renewal Association Board has been involved and aware of this for quite a long time. Discussed that with them again on August 5th, their last meeting. I went and talked to the School District Development Committee, which is a subset of their Board of Trustees. In the beginning of August, explained what the city was looking at doing, and that and they're making sure they're aware, and also that they are expected and invited to provide comment and input throughout the process. Find discussion with them. They understood and where we're headed, and are actually continuing to be available and want to participate as we get into more of the comment part of this. But it was positive. We talked actually at that meeting quite a bit about the school improvements that have been done in the existing district down there, which has been something that School District 2 that's been a very positive partnership and relationship too. The Elysian School District is also in this area, so I've been talking with their superintendent. Unfortunately, their board meeting is right now, and so I'm going to have to go see them in October, but I'm sharing more information with them about the process and with him, Luke Shelton, so that they'll be aware and can participate in the process as it goes forward. The county commissioners, I've been in touch with them, and I'm actually going to their discussion here on Thursday to give them a rundown on where we are, and also invite them to participate and provide comment as well. All part of what we need to do statutorily for the taxing jurisdictions. Part of this then in the next steps, we'll talk about further in a couple slides, but is to do a community meeting to just educate and inform people within the expansion area that's proposed, as well as the current area of what's being considered. And then obviously there's a public hearing with the council as part of this process that I'll touch on in a minute, but there's can be input both from the community, from now forward, and there's notification that would occur too. That's one of the important pieces too that we understand from Department of Revenue and through the process is that you have to notify both. If you're expanding a district, you have to notify the people, the property owners within the existing district, as well as all the property owners within the area you're proposing to expand to. So that's a lot of people or a lot of property owners, but that is what needs to happen, and they will expect us to be able to show that we did that moving forward. So in terms of kind of where we are and next steps in this, we've completed the analysis that we're talking about tonight. The next piece would be the council has to do a resolution of intent to expand the district and basically approve of or accept the findings of the report to say that yes, it meets the code, and now we want to move forward with expansion of the district. That I've got currently scheduled for September 22nd. Then we will send out postcards to all the property owners I just was talking about to let them know two things: that there'll be an informational meeting on October 9th to explain what's going on in the process. And also it will tell them that there's a public hearing scheduled for October 27th, which will be what the council's action would be for the next big piece of this on the council side. So we're going to try to tell them both of those things in one postcard to avoid having to send two. And so it's going to be really important that those dates are solid. And then we have to work on revisions to the renewal plan to reflect the expansion, any other edits or changes we might make to that plan. I can tell you when we did some of the amendments a few years ago, we were more specific in a few areas regarding public improvements. It helped us with public safety, with how we did the evidence facility project. We added language about schools and school facilities. That's helped us with some of the school projects. And we also added some language about parks and recreation, which has helped us with the Amon Park project. So those were all things that we purposefully really want to make sure you call those things out in your renewal plan, because that's what you go to, we go to, the state goes to, and actually bond council goes to when they look to see if what you're proposing to do matches up with your plan. So those things will have to get accomplished. We have to go to the planning board for a finding of conformance with our current growth policy. That's standard. That's in the law as well. Brad and his team did some initial analysis on that within the report, so we have that already started. But we'll have to talk to them about the urban renewal plan at that point as well. You have your public hearing and first reading of the expansion ordinance, as I mentioned, and that's planning to have that on October 27th. And then council, and then you go to your second reading in November, which would be, at that point, the process would be completed. And we would then prepare all the documents and send those to the Department of Revenue they have to basically agree that we followed the law. And then they would set 2025 as the base year for this expanded portion of the South Billings district. So those are kind of the upcoming steps and pieces and parts that have to occur. Happy to try and answer any questions you have. And basically, as the mayor said, just looking to, planning to keep going exactly as we are, but want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and we get that from you tonight. So thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Wyatt. Council, let's follow the usual procedure, which is factual questions for Wyeth about the procedure and other details, and then we'll see if there's any public comment, and then we'll come back and just ask council how they want to proceed, specifically if there is positive direction here. So,
and yeah, Councilman, it looks like Councilmember Shaw I just noticed her hand just went up. So
yeah, and oftentimes we ignore the poor people online. So why don't we start with Councilmember Shaw and Councilmember Owen, and then we'll start down here with Councilmember Ripsis and work this direction. So Councilmember Shaw, you want to kick us off, please?
Yes, hello. Hi, everybody. I'll turn my video on so I can, I don't know if you can see me or not, but okay, thank you so much, Wyeth. I'm so happy to see this is moving forward and where it's at. I have a couple of factual questions for you, and then Mayor, I'll just throw in the back of your mind. I would love to make a motion for approval to move forward, but I'll wait until after people have made comments. So a couple questions. One is, when does the language for the public notice letters, like when would that have to be finalized? Because I think obviously there's a lot of misinformation around TIF, and we need to clearly communicate this is not an additional tax for a specific part of Billings. I'm sure there's all kinds of procedural language that has to go in there too, but I'm just curious if there will be any chance to kind of look over that language. So that's question one. I don't know if you want to answer that, and then I can
sure
ask my next one.
Yeah, so I guess a couple things. Yeah, so the plan, and that's why we have the planned community meeting, which is not a statutory required event, but it's we did it. I've done it. So actually, we've done it every time we've done an expansion, and it's really to be able to give an opportunity to talk to people within the district, within the proposed area, the rest of the community, whoever wants to show up, basically, but to explain to them how this whole thing works, what we're doing, how the tax urban renewal districts work, tax increment finance, and showing the way the increment is built, et cetera, that it's not new taxes. So yeah, that actually is why we have that meeting planned, and that postcard would say, here's when the meeting is, here's where, here's how you can get more information. Have a website or QR code to direct them, and then also put the public hearing information on there too. So that's that postcard would have to go out on September 24th, which again, the postcard won't have a ton. Postcard's pretty small, not a lot of narrative on there, but it'll have the information and direct people to where there's more information, and then say, please come to the meeting, and then we will give them a rundown at the meeting. So that's the current plan with that. The other language for creation or expansion of the district and such, you will all get, yes, when you have your steps. I mean, that'll be brought to you as part of that. So I guess depending on what you're looking for, that's what I can tell you. If there's more I can share, I'm sure happy to.
That's really helpful. I so appreciate that. I just think we can't communicate early or often enough the reality of this and how it's not an additional tax being levied on people. So maybe it's just that postcard, if it has a QR code, that right away when people go on the website, there is that information. I just want to get ahead of that story as much as possible. And then, all right, my second question is about the boundaries. So I see, like, as you said, you drew them, kind of as wide as you might possibly consider the expansion. At what point, how long does council have before we have to say, this is the street exactly here? We're including Wilson Park, we're not. What's the timeline on that? I didn't quite see that in the presentation.
Correct. Yeah. So that would be basically after we go through with the community meeting. So the October 27th council meeting is when you would take action and conduct the public hearing. So before that, basically the anticipation would be after the community meeting and we get input and any comment there. At that point, that's when I'd be looking to start, be solidifying that to meet the 27th deadline. So for the meeting. So I guess if there was, if you all had input on that either now or at that point, that's when we would want to make any tweaks. We've basically currently set this up with the area. We've got we had GIS run a legal description basically of the perimeter that is acceptable to DOR, which goes along with the map when we send that to them. So that's what we're working off of now. But if there was going to be a change, we would want to make that adjustment, rerun that description, and then say, okay, this is what we're dealing with now. So I would say now, and then for sure when we collect any public comment or input that might have some impact on it.
Okay, perfect. So I think it's really smart. I think it's very smart the way you've done it, but just to be sure. So if we give affirmative direction, yes, go forward tonight. This is all looking great. We don't have to quibble about the boundaries right now in this meeting. There's still a little bit of time to think about that, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. I think the thing that, and I don't know if Brad has anything to chime in. I think the thing that is important is as we continue like with the urban renewal plan, start making amendments and reflection of that. I mean, we're looking at that area. So if there was going to be a significant change, I guess we would want to be prepared so we could say, okay, we don't need to, we don't want to call out something that might not be in that area going forward. But
I'm not trying to soft pedal a change that I have in the back of my mind. I just was curious about if other council members have specific suggestions. So, okay, thank you. Those are my 2 questions. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Owen, do you have anything in the way of questions for Wyeth?
No, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ripsis?
Thank you, Mayor. Wyeth, my big concern with going down this direction wasn't that the expansion area doesn't need TIF. Absolutely it does. My concern is that there's not enough time remaining in the TIF life cycle to affect all the change that we need to. And by coming in at basically the end stages of the, it's 19 years or whatever, 20 years left, but it's the end stages. We're shortchanging the potential capacity of that TIF district in that area. As I look through the projects that are indicated in this document, a lot of them are public projects, not private. There's vacant buildings and those kinds of things, but I mean the number one thing driving this is the South Park pool. We've got lots of projects on public infrastructure, not necessarily tax increment generating type projects. So what I'm trying to get to is how will we know that all the projects that we might have in our mind for this expansion area can actually be done using the expansion of the Suburra and the relatively short time frame that we have, knowing that we can't 20-year bond much of anything beyond next year. So we're going to be using up an increasing percentage of the Suburra capacity for shorter bond lengths, higher payments, on top of already taking a big chunk of that capacity to go do South Park Pool. So long kind of rambling, like how do we know that this financially is going to be able to do the things that we want there?
Councilor Ripsis and Mayor and rest of council. I mean, I think that's a great question. Yeah, there's no doubt that the time frame the time is the time now. So talking with, I guess, specifically talking with Andy Zeller, our finance director, on for something like the pool project. There's enough time to do something like that in his estimation based on in the next year or two, if we were bonding in the 19 to 18, whatever year timeframe. When you start talking about other projects, I don't think you could guarantee or anything like whatever we come up and list in the urban renewal plan that it's like, oh yeah, this is all going to happen. I think that, and to be honest, I mean, even in like the South Billings urban renewal plan now or East Billings, I mean, yeah, we've done a lot of things in a lot of those districts, but we haven't done everything in all those districts. So I think that would be an important point in terms of, yeah, there's going to be goals and we're going to have to prioritize because potentially not everything's going to be able to be accomplished. There are some really, I think, potential redevelopment opportunities for private development down there on some properties especially on the edges and in a few areas that could certainly, if this tool is available, if one or two of those were to happen, that would be significant. And there could be some incentive, and then obviously that would generate some increment. But I think, yeah, you would definitely be having to look at balancing, the existing district's capacity and then this capacity to see what could get done. And I think that's probably a great point in terms of managing expectations in terms of what could get done and what those priorities are in this area. I know Public Works, has a pretty good list of improvements down there, millions of dollars worth. And so even that, it would be like, okay, what does the city want to kind of start and work through and be able to accomplish in that 19-year time frame?
Because we're going to have to, anything that is significant dollars enough that we would look to bond, we're going to want to front load those, I think, as much as possible. So I would think we have to have really good line of sight to what those projects are before we pass this expansion, so that we can know, what's first up, and we don't end up spinning our wheels over the first couple years of the expanded TIF district, trying to figure out how to prioritize these things. Otherwise, those bonds start getting really expensive. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Tidwell.
Going back to what Mr. Nelson was talking about at the beginning of this meeting, I don't know who would answer this thing, or can you ensure us that we're not outside of compliance or law, or we're doing this properly? Spell anything misconceptions he may have?
Yeah, Councilmember Tiswell and Mayor and Council, I don't know what the specifics of what he's alleging. I know that.
What do I?
Yeah, I know that the process, I mean, we've had, every time we do an expansion, in this case, we have to document and then provide that to the State Department of Revenue for them to say, yes, you've done it correctly, and yes, we're gonna approve it and set the base year. And that's happened every time, so I don't know what might be, what he might be talking about, because we haven't, that's where, I mean, I certainly have had DOR ask me questions and we've had to, go back and check things, like that's happened, and ultimately they've said, yes, okay, this is done and complete. So, yeah, it'd be great to know what he's thinking and why he thinks this time potentially we're on the right track.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I have a couple of questions. We've had, in the suburb, we've had some discussions over some of the streets that were gravel streets and where 100% of the cost was paid by the suburb. In the past, they felt that they were promised that all their gravel streets would be paid in full, and I think recently we have not done that. So is there, when we go to rewrite or update this plan that we have to do, I think you said we have to kind of update something, is that something that we can ensure that we write in there that we're not going to be doing that residential streets that are gravel are not going to be paid by the TIF? Maybe some of it, maybe the curb and the gutters or something like that, but the actual street itself, if it hasn't been put to street standards, things like that, that the residents will be assessed that?
Councilmember Neese.
That is if the council agrees with that.
Yeah,
right?
Mayor and Council. So I think one of the things so right now, in the urban renewal plan, and actually also in working with Dick and Sabura and engineering and actually our CIP, we still have that laid out to complete the rest of those streets. And engineering has had estimates and numbers on that over, but the decision was made to push those out at this point, given other things that are being done down there. So currently, I guess to your question, we would want to look at, if that was something that the council wanted to change, we would want to look at just the language that we have currently in the urban renewal plan that talks about that, and how specific it is. I'm not sure if it's so specific about who's paying all or less or not. I think there's certainly been that conveyed to the people
Right,
down there.
yeah.
And so we'd want to look at that. And then also, obviously, right now, it's still in the CIP and it's still on the horizon of doing that. And so I think that would also be a question of, like, does the council want to continue move forward with those in the next few years? Because the engineering had basically helped break it out over several years of expenditures, so it wasn't all at once, but it would gradually get the rest of those complete.
So they are in the CIP at paying 100%?
I believe so. Well, I think they are. I'd have to check. I would assume if it shows, that it's Sabura funds 100%, but I think my understanding was, we've got them out a few different years pushed out, so we would need to check on that.
Okay, and then this expansion it's a pretty large, it's almost doubling the area size of the existing TIF district. I'm not sure if you guys measured what the actual percentage increase is, but it looks pretty large, and it takes into account almost the entire south side of the city, south of tracks there. And so do you have any idea what the percentage of the city is as far as area-wise of the city? Is it, you can't really tell from this map. It looks half of this map, less than half of this map. But are we talking? Are we inviting the legislator to say, wait a minute, you can't have, half of your city or a sixth or a third of your city in a TIF district? There's a lot of TIF districts now in this area that's expanding. Why not make the entire city a TIF district, and then we have all the county and school district taxes roll into a TIF district that manages it and does different things?
So I guess two things. One, I think if you were to look, we certainly, with this expansion, obviously this district then will touch the downtown, which will touch the eBird. So basically all the city's districts will be adjacent to each other in this part of the city. I would say that, and I don't have we'll have to do the math, but even with this, we're still talking a pretty small amount of the entire city. If you were to take the whole city and say how much of it is these districts, it would be still quite small because of how big the city is geographically. So I think at this point I don't want to ever guess what the legislature's folks might be concerned about, but I don't think that's an issue here. I think there's other communities around the state that's probably smaller communities where it's probably a more significant piece. But anyway, I don't think that's an issue. I think the part, though, to your other question about or comment about expansion and like more of the city, the thing that keeps you from making your whole city a district or something or huge parts is it has to qualify, it has to meet these parameters. And so there are big areas of Billings that would not meet the law.
Well,
so
that's true, but there are large areas of, you can go down Grand Avenue and some of the older areas of town. Anytime there's an older area of town, you're going to have blight. The newer parts of town, you don't typically see it. But the older areas of town, like this is old town here, you always get a lot of blight because people, when they do move out and they maybe go west and someone doesn't move in. In fact, some of the pictures, I would say maybe it was more of a code enforcement issue, because you got these tall weeds growing in their property as opposed to actual blight. And so anytime you have an older part of town, you're going to see it. So we got a lot of old sections of town that we could have a very large TIF district to help all of that blight and all of that infrastructure that has been kept up by the property owners and frankly by the city as well, because of the old curbing and gutters that happens to be falling apart and been hit by plows over the years. But I think we could expand a TIF district through central Billings, Central Heights there, and there's a lot that could be done in that area because there's a lot of blight in that area as well.
And Councilor Neese, that's a good point. We'll get to the discussion element, but we'll just try to keep the factual questions if you're there.
I'm good.
I do want to address your specific question. I was just looking myself. So on page 5, it says that the area under consideration would be about 903 acres. So 640 acres per square mile, call it at 1.5 square miles. The city's about 44 square miles, so 3%-ish, something in that neighborhood. Right.
Yep, and the only piece I would add is someone did try the whole city thing. Whitefish tried it in the 90s, and bond council said, no, the whole town is not blighted. So we would not be successful as the whole city, but as you point out, the different areas need to pass the blight analysis. Really is key. That work that has been done to get us to today is critical.
Thank you.
Good. Councilor Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Wyatt. You're going to send out a postcard to a lot of people. And to me, is this a formality? Or if 12 people show up and say, I don't like it, I'm voting against it, what is the procedure then if you have to have half the people say I don't like it or a third of the people? Or is there any benchmark that says, no, this won't work because of too many people saying no? Or is it just the courtesy of sending them a notice?
Councilmember Boyette, yeah, and Mayor and Council, yeah, that is totally a informational and courtesy effort. It's you, the council, who makes the decision. So yeah, we could have 100 people say no and you can still say yes. You can have, it doesn't matter. It's obviously it matters in the sense we're trying to make sure people understand what's going on and why and like what it does. So the education is what's really critical, but there's no tie to that. It's your decision to move, to decide whether to move forward. I know as an example, when we got this far actually with looking at the Founders District area, which was a potentially their expansion or new district west of the downtown over by the YMCA and Transwestern and all that area. And we got to the point of ready to kind of move that forward. And there was people that were very not interested in having the expansion or the new district, didn't want to see that. And the council, ultimately decided not to move forward. And we stopped after we had gotten about this far into the process. And we had an informational meeting at that point as well. So, but it's a council decision. It's just trying to make sure people understand what's happening so that hopefully by the time it gets to your time to take action, everybody's as informed as they can be.
Thank you. Councilor Rogers? Why I think two quick questions for you. Can you just walk us through again the schedule, how we get to 2046 for the death date of Sabura? That's from page 11. And I'm not sure the math, because I know there's 15 years, you can go 15 years extension if there's bonding, blah, blah, blah. But just how do we get to 2046?
Yeah, actually, so that was from talking with Andy, our finance director, because that currently, based on the bonds we already have in action in this district, that is the end date of one or more of those bonds. So that's what
Okay, so that means since 2046 is in 21 years from now, I was just confused because the sentence before that says that the 15 years may be extended for up to an additional 15 years if TIF bonds are sold. So I'm thinking that is a statutory change that has occurred since we issued those bonds, and we're relying upon an earlier statute that would govern the length of the district, not the current 15 years. So that's the only explanation I have, and I know there's been a lot of changes there. So anyway, you're writing that down. Maybe just check on that and make sure.
I can double check with him on that number or that year,
Okay.
But that is what it's based off of. And we have had some there's been some things in this district that are quite from way early versus more recently. So, but I'll ask him.
Yeah, and I know there've been a lot of changes there at the legislature. And then final question, following up on Councilmember Russ's point, which was very well taken. There's lots of opportunity in this district to spend money, very little to make it, by my perspective. So with the end point, I don't want to say just around the corner, but not too far down the line, there's going to be a real need to accomplish things early with limited dollars and prioritize spending. Where would we get the biggest bang for the buck? And in my mind, that requires a plan, not just waiting to see what comes in the door and who knocks on our door saying, "Can I have a more than $1?" So here's the question: is there any reason we couldn't focus on that planning effort? Where are the areas in the district that have the biggest potential, where there's the most interest, most demand, biggest chance for positive return on investment, et cetera? But that just doesn't happen overnight. We don't just say, "Why go do that?" So how do we make that happen? And specifically, is there any problem with using these TIF dollars to finance outside planning efforts, consultants? And have you thought about that planning effort?
So starting at the back going forward, no, I haven't thought much about prioritizing projects in this area yet. I think what I would first say is that we would really want to do as much as we can in as we update the urban renewal plan to reflect at least the types of projects and the areas. Like I mentioned, Public Works has a variety of infrastructure, replacements and things where there's very aged infrastructure that they could, we would be able to at least say, okay, here's a bunch of things that we're looking at. Obviously parks as well. And those are public specifically. Yeah, if so, that's a place where some of this would definitely need to be and should be identified and shown in terms of its condition. In terms of looking at if there was going to be an effort to prioritize, or focus redevelopment in certain areas of the expanded district, then yeah, there would have to be additional analysis done. Yes, you could have outside help do that and fund it within the district or with the district. That would be possible. But yeah, we'd have to look, I guess, at what that would.
Okay, fine. I just want to plant that idea.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, your advisory board, not that they would do the research, but the advisory board that's now the city's advisory board, that's something certainly that they could be weighing in on as well with this, because that board would be looking at this whole area.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Kennedy? It's on. Oh,
Is it on now? Okay. I just want to say a few things. I work down there. I'm there all the time off of 2025 Fifth Avenue South. All of that area should have been included in the Suburra years ago. It's a blighted area. It's an area we would have seen more growth if they would have been able, a lot of businesses, we lost a lot of businesses down there because there wasn't an extra dollar to push them over the top. When the Suburra came about and we started seeing Cabela's, Sam's Club, and all of the other, where do you think a lot of the people come from? From this area, they do their shopping there, they do their eating there, they go to the, the oil change place there. It's all a part of that community down there. It stopped at 5th or at Hallowell Avenue. Why? I have no idea years ago why the council stopped it there, but it didn't go over to the blighted area. What we have on 27th Street is Riverstone Health. We have the women's prison. We have the post office. We have the youth detention center. All of that on the south side. So when people start talking about where is your businesses and everything, you gave us all of the governmental businesses right on South 27th. So where is the tax dollars to build up a lot on the south side. There isn't. This is a way to be able to come back and help some of the places with the infrastructure. We have an awful lot of properties that are on 27th Street, 26th Street, 25th Street, and over in other areas. I want to say thank you to Deb Mealing and the Public Works Department. We're seeing 9th and 10th being overlaid as we're here. We've seen the other side streets that at least have chip seals that have been sitting there for a long time. This is an opportunity to really grow the south side, and truly, if a TIF is to help a blighted area, this is where it needs to go. So I would recommend to the council that we look at the map that's in front of us and go with it, because it can help. And in those areas on the other side of 27th Street, there's businesses that do need help. And there are a lot of other businesses that could grow on State Avenue, on First Avenue. And you're going to see a lot of reconstruction on First Avenue South, especially with the taking down of the grain elevators and all of that. So it's needed the help for a long time. As you talk about priorities, I have to say, if you go to the Suburban meetings and they really prioritize. So I would
You can use that just to.
I would just say one thing. We go forward with this tonight. There's a lot of opportunities for this whole area. And 21 years, there's an opportunity to really change the face of the south side. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Questions, Councilmember Espenlander? Okay, very good. Then we'll open up for public comment. This is time for public comment. You've heard the discussion on item number 1, the report we've got on the expansion analysis. If you'd like to comment, this is your opportunity. Please come forward. We just ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Tell us who you are. Is there any public comment on item number 1? Any public comment on item number 1? No one's coming forward, so we'll close the public comment period on item number 1. Now back to council. Anything in the way of real discussion? I do want to give Kendra asked for the opportunity to make a motion. I'll turn it to her unless council needs to have something you think should proceed that.
Just a real quick question for Wyeth. Wyeth, the TIF districts between this proposed and the downtown and Ebert, is the tracks separated, or does it include the tracks as well on one or the other?
So Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, I have to double check, but I believe so the downtown comes up and crosses over the tracks in a portion of the area and then goes up along the track. So this expansion would go up against that boundary. So you'd basically cover the whole, both sides, and the whole thing, the tracks and that. The tracks are obviously, the part that's Burlington owned is centrally assessed, which can be good or bad. But they are currently grabbed by part of the downtown and would be included in part of this.
Okay, so I think it's 21st Street where we're studying the underpass there. If that will now be in, if this map is proposed, some of it will be in the downtown, some of it will be in the suburb. Is that correct?
I believe the way that, this would come along the south side of that, where the tracks, or actually, I guess it's even south because Minnesota drops down there. But yeah, we could look at that, but it goes along that whole southern side.
Okay. I just want to double check, make sure we're including, that area is included, because I know there's been discussion about trying to improve that area. So thank you.
Wyeth, if I can ask you another just factual question. What motivated this discussion was the need to improve South Park after the Parks Bond and mill levy effort failed. And we don't have to be embarrassed by that. That's just true. And also South Park and South Park Pool area is a clear element of blight as the report demonstrates. So it seems to me that another option that this council could be considering here is call it expansion light. which is just to extend the eastern boundary over whatever it is, roughly a quarter of a mile or half mile to get to South Park and include that area. But that's about it. I assume that it would need to be continuous and contiguous property as opposed to polka dot version, which would be fine, and then come back and make a south side TIF district number 4, that would last a much longer period, but wouldn't have the benefit of the tax generation along the I-90 corridor. That'd be the downside of that. Is that, generally speaking, theoretically speaking, an option here? Expansion light.
I mean, yeah, Mayor and Council, I mean, yeah, we could certainly, you could adjust this, the boundary back, and I didn't totally follow everything you said, but to basically do a much smaller footprint for the expansion, to accomplish, again, that area still would all be qualifying. You would just make it smaller. You could certainly do something like that, and then, yeah, that, I mean, one of the things to Councilmember Neese's comment and yours.
And so why, I'm just going to stop you. I just trying to answer the question. We'll move on. So what's to be gained from that? If we just created our own separate Southside TIF district, I guess what, we get 9 more years, because it would go under the new statute 15 years. And if there was bonding in year 15, you get another 15, so a total of 30. Assuming a best case scenario, in other words, a last minute bonding at the end of the life cycle of the new Southside TIF district, where now we've got 21 years. So what we're doing is giving up theoretically 9 years of life. Do I have the math right?
I think you're accurate. I'd have to go back and look at some of the more recent law. But the other thing that, I mean, in terms of the time frame, and make sure that that's correct, because there was a lot of effort to reduce that. But I believe you're right. The other thing that we'd have to look at too is if we do a new district, there are now there's tax levies and such that are no longer allowed to be included. So some of that, I know, like the university levies are taken out now. So if you do it, that hasn't happened to us because none of ours are so old that they weren't affected. But if you do a new one, so you do also then have to look at what that does to your values. But
okay,
yeah,
all points well taken. I'm just trying to look at the pros and the cons. Chris, you want to comment on that? And then
the only other
discussion, Council. Go ahead.
The only other piece I would add is that, and there's pros and cons, is that when starting a TIF district from scratch, you have the benefit of the time. You also are desperate for a catalyst project. And so until there's actually an injection of serious revenue, you're waiting year after year after year. And in this case, you can launch almost immediately.
Okay, very good, thanks. Just general discussion. Again, I want to recognize Councilmember Shaw's request. Councilmember Aspliner?
And Chris just said exactly what I was going to say. And the downside of trying to start a new TIF district, particularly in this area, is there is no project. I mean, the thing that got the South TIF off the ground was the Miller Crossing development with Sam's Club and Cabela's and all that. And that TIF district has grown, it has transformed, really. The benefit of doing this expansion is exactly that. I mean, it has probably some of the most revenue in a district in the state of Montana, and it's one of the better run ones in the state of Montana. And we have the ability to leverage the increment that's already in place to do some of the projects that we need to do from a public infrastructure standpoint, plus have the opportunity to help leverage those dollars for private development catalyst. So, we can talk about starting a new TIF district, but what I would challenge you is find me an area in this expansion where you're going to get, $20 million of private equity reinfused without any assistance. I don't see it. And that almost kills that TIF district right out of the chutes. So I mean, unless we have some ideas of how to incentivize businesses to come down there and do redevelopment to start the increment, we're tilting at windmills about what a new TIF district would look like down there. So I'll defer to Councilwoman Shaw to make the motion so we can keep going.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Shaw, did you want to chime in here?
Yes, please. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to move forward with an affirmative vote that, yes, this is the right direction. Obviously, there's still questions to be answered about if council wants to shrink the borders, but I'm glad to know we don't have to hash through that tonight. I would echo pretty much everything Councilmember Aspenleiter and Chris just said of, I think it's good to weigh the pros and cons. You know what? If there's a second, I'll speak to the motion, but let's make sure there's a second first.
And I did want to give somebody from Ward 3 the opportunity to make a second, since it impacts them. Councilmember Kennedy is indicating the second. So Councilmember Shaw, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess I'm of the opinion that a bird in the hand is worth better than two in the bush at this point, and we know South Park Pool is just not going to last much longer. And I want to be on the side of trying to solve that problem. I also think that even though it's not an increment generator, it will be a big catalyst project in that area that will be really important for local businesses. So I look at it as, yes, it's going to take up that bonding capacity if we move forward with it, but I think the benefit for our community will far outweigh it. And in terms of starting new TIFs, hey, I would love to start some new TIF districts. There's lots of other areas in Billings that could use them. I would love to have that conversation instead of trying to piecemeal up the south side of Billings. Let's get this into a TIF that is already has the cash for this. I look at the eBird as a potential model of if we just tried to siphon off this area into its own new TIF district. It doesn't have a lot of cash. It's taken a long time to even get to the point that it is, and it just doesn't have the ability to do these big multi-million-dollar investments. So I think we're smart to try and jump ahead of that train. So I would offer that as a motion to move forward, and thank you, Councilmember Kennedy, for seconding it.
Very good. Thank you. You got a motion on the table, so discussion. Any further discussion? Councilor Rupes?
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, and I definitely understand the the challenges with starting a new TIF district here. And so it's, I'm going to go ahead and support this now, but I think in order for me to vote in favor of it come October, I really would like to see what the financial projections of the Suburra as we add on the bonds for the rec center, and then what we're projecting for the pool, and then whatever are the highest priority projects that we're thinking of in terms of the infrastructure and other things that would have to be bonded in the pretty short term in order to pay for those. So we can see exactly what our expectations should be for free cash flow over the next, 10 to 15 years. Because I would hate for us to be surprised to say we did this expansion and then not be able to follow through with significant investments where where they are needed. So I want to support the expansion. I want to go into it with eyes wide open. So hopefully we'll have at least some kind of ballpark estimates that we can put together a projection for October. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Aspenleiter?
Thanks, Councilman Rupes. I agree, and I hope in working with Public Works we can get an understanding of what their infrastructure projects are. The only thing I want to, for us as council, as we talk about this with the constituency and the rest of the city, what I want us to be careful of is that we're creating this notion that the only reason that we're doing this is for South Park Pool. Certainly that is a portion of it, but I think that mischaracterizes the benefit of the expansion of the South TIF district in maybe what could be perceived certainly by the legislature and by Helena in a bad light. This is certainly something that's going to help the entirety of that South Triangle. It's going to help the residents down there. It's going to help the business community on First South, 27 South, and State Street. And those infrastructure investments that have been made and will be made, similar to what's been done by Aspera with the gravel street conversions and those types of things, are transformative to neighborhoods. Those are also a part of the work we're going to get done. We can't overpromise and underdeliver. I certainly don't want to do that. But what I don't want to do is start the narrative and create this characterization that we're only doing this so that we can build a pool. I think that does a disservice to the work that we're doing here. I think that misleads the public, and I think that's just a bad way to talk about it. So I'd encourage us as we have these conversations going forward that, you know, this isn't the Espera expansion for South Park Pool. This is the Espera expansion for the South Side.
Very good, thank you. I'll make a few comments. I certainly will support this effort, and I think it's a good one. My recommendation to the city and to the council, though, is we focus on 3 Ps in this process. First, the plan, and that goes back to my conversation earlier with Wyeth. There's so much out there, so many places to spend these dollars that I'm concerned that if they're not spent strategically, we will have shot a lot of small bullets when 1 or 2 big bullets would be much more transformational. So where are the areas that should be prioritized? Is there places where we can get critical mass? What's the policy, the procedures? All of that, I think, is going to take a planning effort. So first, the plan. 2 is I think we really have to emphasize private investment. I get really nervous when I hear about ways that the city can save itself money by using these TIF dollars. We have mechanisms for collecting public works dollars through our street assessments, our other raising of fees. And so I think we just need to be very cautious there. And I, for one, will be very hesitant to invest in paying for paving gravel streets, where again, we have a mechanism for it by just assessing our neighborhoods. So we need to have skin in the game in order to raise increment, and that needs to be a top priority. And the way we get that is by private investment. So that's the second P, private. And then thirdly, last is the procedure for making these grants. There's going to be a lot of demand and relatively, even though there'll be a lot of money, there's going to be a lot more demand than I think dollars available. So that procedure needs to be thought through. In particular, my recommendation is to, and I've said this before many times, that we have a investigation process that pools, that's the third P, pools applications into and makes allocation in tranches. I'm not smart enough to know what the exact criteria should be that makes a good project or a medium project or a great project, but it is easier to see if you have a pool in front of you to make relative judgments. Otherwise, we just tend to approve whatever comes in the door until we run out of money. But by requiring that applications come in, be patient, we'll make a decision once a year, maybe twice a year. We can look at groups of projects and make relative standards. So again, that procedure through the pooling process would be another recommendation I'd have. But we all know that there's a lot of great benefits that can come from this, and it's exciting to move down this path. Other discussion, Councilmember Kennedy.
I just like to comment, you know, the Suburra Board has been going through and prioritizing. I think we get a lot of projects. I don't think we've given the downtown TIF the scrutiny you're trying to give, trying to get a newly formed one. I don't believe, and I agree with Councilman Asplender on the fact we're not here just to build the South Side Pool. We're here to revitalize the South Side. And until you realize that, that's what we're looking at. I don't want to spend a lot of money on a lot of planning and everything else that are all going to go on the shelves. We need to start looking at real businesses. The gentleman that came in on State Avenue, he could have used some help with the parking lot. He's making it with the car, with the laundromat and the restaurant. He could have used that help. That's a small business that's going to be paying taxes. And that also built on a property that's been vacant for a long time. We have a Sinclair station that's revitalizing on 27th Street, the 3Gs that have been shut down for years. And all it did was get a lot of graffiti and all of that. Could have used some help. We had some building projects over on the south side. We're always talking about coming back and helping with affordable housing, and we've never put any money in. There's a lot of private investment money going on the south side. We have lots and a lot of lots along there. We have businesses along State Avenue, a couple of new businesses on State Avenue that really could do it. When we talk about having money for to revitalize the south side and all that area, I got to tell you, I have faith in Dick of going out because he finds a lot of folks that are willing to relocate and really build up this area. I think you need to look at it, and you need to come down to the south side and look at a lot of this area, because there's a lot of blighted area. We're not going to do streets and things like that. We're going to really help real businesses grow down there. And that's why this needs to go forward.
Very good. Other comments on the motion before we proceed to a vote? Don't see any yellow hands. Don't see anybody else. So, Council, if we're ready to vote, the motion is to move ahead with the general staff recommendation shown in your staff report, consistent with the next steps and proposed action schedule. If in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
If opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes with exception of Councilmember Nice. All other council members voting in favor. Thank you very much for your discussion. That concludes item 1. Now we'll move on to item 2, which is the Urban Renewal District Legislative and Operation Modification. So this is those 3 new advisory boards to oversee the 3 PIF districts that we've been talking about. Wyeth, your name is on this, so we'll turn it to you, and I know that Gino will be weighing in as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I'll kick this off. No presentation on this one, more of just an update and some discussion. Actually, since you last week took some significant action in this area. So just as I outlined in the memo, we've moved through. So on the 25th at your meeting, you passed the resolutions to set up the 3 advisory boards for the 3 districts. That is moving forward. We're actually getting that. We have been working with with Winnette, and the city administration to get that legally advertised and put it out so applications can be submitted. So that's happening, moving forward right now. I have been in touch, and I'm going to send information. Well, I'm going to visit, like I shared earlier, with the commissioners when I talked to them on Thursday about the expansion. I'm also going to talk to them about this, for them to get their appointments to you for their county representation on the 3 boards. School District 2 is ready to go. They just need the application information. I was just talking to them on Friday, so I'll be getting that to them, and also Elysian School. So in terms of the formation of those boards, we're hoping that there is some time frame, obviously, to advertise, get the applications, get those in, get those to the mayor, and then get to council, so that you can be acting on those. Hopefully, I believe, and it'd be possible to put them on one of the October agendas based on the advertising that's happening now in September. I anticipate you'll have the county and school district appointees to you here in a much shorter time, and you'll be ready to be able to put those, to get those ready to go on those advisory boards. So that's done, or that's moving forward, not done, but we'll be back for action. But we've got the components of that in place. And so really now the other piece that's still outstanding is that Gina and I have been working on initial drafting of new agreements with the 3 entities who are then going to be supporting the 3 advisory boards. And so we're in that early, that process, looking at the existing MOUs. There's obviously material and pieces of that should carry over, but there's also new material that's going to need to be in there, and specificity about what those responsibilities are for those entities going forward to support those advisory boards or advisory committees. And then also making sure that we have, we sit down with each of them, review a draft, and then come back to you. And so right now, we have on the council's October 6th work session when we would come back with, at that point, we would anticipate we would have been able to put together, complete the draft agreements, go talk to each entity, get their input, and then come to you and say, okay, here's where we're at. Like, how close are we to being able to then bring those to you for action? We want to do a work session though before that because of just all the pieces and parts that are going to go with that. So the what was mentioned in the memo to you, and I think there was some pre-discussion this morning with the mayor and deputy mayor, is the council does need to determine its city representative or representatives for the three boards or three committees. And then also, if you have any questions or comments on elements or things you're thinking about regarding the agreements that would be helpful for us to take back as we work through that, that would be great tonight. Even if it's questions that you can ask us, we can't answer tonight, but then we can go back and then it'll help us inform that process of putting those agreements together. So, and the three district groups are aware that this is where we're at and that we'll be coming back to have that conversation with them here shortly. So with that, I'm happy to, if Gina has anything to add, but that's all I have. Thanks.
Gina, before we just open up for questions, did you have anything?
There we go. I don't have anything to add. I'm essentially just here to answer and assist with any questions. Since you just had this before you last week, this was already on the agenda. It probably didn't really need to be included now because there's not a whole lot extra to update you on, but Wise did a good job of giving you the status.
Okay, thanks. So questions, Councilmember Kennedy, Councilmember Boyd, Councilmember Neese.
I would just, we have under your discussion topics that the city council needs to decide on the city representative. I would recommend that the city representative fill out the application like we do with any other city board, that they either own property or they live in the area, that they would have a part of that. So either they own property or they live in the area. The city council doesn't need to be on the boards because we already make the decision at the very end. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Kennedy, if I can just clarify, any applicant should reveal whether they own property. Are you saying that should be a good thing or a bad thing? Or just want to know?
It would be a good thing that they either own property or they lived in the district. So they have a stake in the game.
Okay, thanks very much. Councilmember Boyette, Councilmember Neese?
So Gina, my question would be, could anybody from the city staff, or including the council, be on one of these committees, or does it have to be someone that's not related to the city?
Councilmember Boyette, I believe that, well, it was my understanding that the intent of the legislation was to actually give the city, the entity, the organization, more of a voice. And so I believe it would be appropriate, it would be appropriate for council if that was the desire to have a council member be appointed or a member of the staff appointed, if that's how you chose to go forward.
Okay, Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm a little unclear on that. I thought that we talked about that council members couldn't serve on those boards, but maybe we were talking about something different. But so you're saying that council members, elected officials, can serve on a council advisory committee?
Generally, city code does not allow that generally, but this is a statutorily mandated advisory committee, and therefore the statute would supersede city code in this situation. So it's my opinion that you are entitled to appoint the representative of your choice.
Okay, so you're appointing instead of like the current boards, they have to be advertised and everyone gets a chance to apply and the mayor looks through it and then recommends it. So you're saying that procedure we don't have to follow in the school? That's what I was going to ask about Wyeth, because he said the county and school district will have their appointees to us soon. I'm assuming that they don't have to follow any kind of our committee board rules to make sure they're advertised and appointed and allow people to apply?
The statute does not lay any of that out, so I think that for those 3 representatives, I think you have a bit of flexibility and could make that determination about how you want to make those appointments. You could certainly ask those entities to have for example, if a school district wanted to like nominate or set forth to council who they would like to be their appointee, I think you could ask that person fill out an application, or you could decide that you want to honor the school district's request for that nomination to be appointed. There's no real process. You could simply just say, no, we want to follow the process in our city code. But as far as the qualifications go, I think that the qualifications here are just a bit different because, for example, the school district decides that they want they're entitled to their representation, their voice. So if you honor who they want to have, say they want a trustee or whoever it is from the school district that they want, we have one of our city code requirements is a 2-term limit. And because that school district representative may be working for the school district for 20 years, that would be the same representative for that entire time. So that is why the resolution includes that the city code is superseded by the state law in this situation, just because it is a statutorily mandated advisory committee. And our city code does set forth that specific exception.
Okay.
Our
so-
city code requirements apply unless superseded by state law or some other interlocal agreement, for example.
Okay,
things
so
like
if we
that.
pick a city staff member, they're going to be, are they then required to be paid to go to these committee meetings since they're working on behalf of the city?
Well, I would think so, yes. If it's part of their job duties, then these are meetings that would most likely be occurring during their work time anyways. For certain, I would also assume that you'd be appointing somebody who's exempt anyways, like,
Salaried employees, so it's not
Mhm.
going to matter, or a council member is not going to matter.
right.
Just as long as
The most appropriate, in my mind, the most appropriate staff to be appointed to a committee like this would be somebody like a city administrator, assistant city administrator, department head like Wyeth or somebody like that.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Rosas.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Gina, that was kind of what I was going to get at. Because I think if I'm remembering all the resolutions from last week, all the advisory boards had at-large members and property owners in the district, right? So this really should be somebody that is representing the entity of the city governments, the city as a whole, their interests, not necessarily somebody just the property owning there. So my question was going to be, who do you think on staff? Presumably Wyeth would probably be the advisory or liaison, I'm guessing, to the advisory committee. So it wouldn't be Wyeth, but which other, you were suggesting, the city administrator, deputy city administrator, finance director, or somebody of that kind would be who you would look to kind of fill that role, who you would recommend?
Well, I'm not sure that I want to make a recommendation,
Sorry,
but I think
I was
that,
mostly looking at Chris.
oh, okay, okay.
Sorry, I didn't say that specifically, but yeah, I think this is a question for Chris.
We can do it that way. Actually, we debated this a little bit because it was our staff tactical meeting this morning. In my mind, it's either an elected official or a staff member for the reasons you described. And I think of our downtown board and the benefits we've had from having school board county commissioner, and your presence in the downtown one. So my leaning, frankly, would be to you guys that it should be one of the 11 of you. Recognizing, like anything that you're on, to be a bit recognizing that you're representing this board, this body, not just yourself. But I think generally, and I emphasize generally, the intent of the legislative conversation was to give the school board in the tax jurisdiction of the school, the county commission, the tax jurisdiction of the county, and the city a voice amongst these boards. Staff could certainly do it. I think, as Gina's pointed out, legally, it could be that way. But I would tend to think there's going to be a staff liaison who's attending, and that it may be better to have one of you.
So did you, as you were kicking this around, 3 of our TIF districts are Ward 1, and one of them is Ward 3 and 1, assuming this expansion goes through. Did you have thoughts on whether it should be, a member from those wards, or should we specifically look for somebody outside of those wards with the idea that maybe that's a broader city kind of thinking? I'm hesitant to say that the mayor should join 3 more boards, but should we spread that around? Maybe specifically choosing people outside those wards, since the resident property owner kind of perspective might be represented from the members on the boards themselves.
So one of those concepts came into the conversation, which is the ward, what ward it's in. But we weren't conclusive. And frankly, I'll have probably a similar answer anytime I get a question like this. To me, you would pick amongst your peers the person who will have the most positive impact on the effectiveness of that board, that issue, whether they happen to have some kind of an expertise. I wouldn't limit you to the ward, because maybe one of you has just a skill, a talent, an interest that would have you putting someone else there. So I would give yourselves the maximum flexibility to pick the right person for each one each time you make that decision.
Councilmember Kennedy.
I still think that the council has something that the school district and the commissioners don't have, and they're the final votes. So I would still reiterate, we would be better served, and by scrutinizing the person that represents the city that either is a property owner or lives in the district because they have a vested interest in it. And all of you have a vote in the end if you're going to approve it or not. And we have staff members that are working with the districts all the time. I really think to make these things work, we need to bring the public in and someone that's really dedicated to the district. I attend the Suburra meetings all the time. So does TJ. And we want to see what's going on and how to go forward. We do know we have a vote on the projects when Dick brings them here. And so that's why I'm really emphasizing, I get it, that you may have a county commissioner, you may have someone from the school district on there, but I think if we vetted people in each of those districts, we get some good candidates to represent the city.
Okay, we'll continue discussion. Councilmember Deans.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Tom, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask you a question because you're the closest one serving now on the downtown. And so from your experience, I mean, you're not allowed to vote, but from your experience, you don't live in the downtown, but you advocate for the downtown because you're advocating really, I'm assuming for the city, for the downtown to see how they can best have those projects spent, things like that. How do you feel about the change of that, of just being someone who's at the meetings and hearing and maybe speaking, and to now they actually going to vote on that? Do you feel that that's kind of a conflict where you're going to then have to try and sell it to us because you voted on it? What's your opinion of that?
I think it certainly would change the approach. What I've tried to do is primarily not to speak on my own opinion, but to kind of channel what I think council will, how council will react when they stand in front of you and make the presentations. So I think that would certainly change. If I were to be an actual voting member, I would probably feel more inclined to advocate for the recommendations when it came here and try to justify the positions I took during the vote. I think it would be hard to vote for or against something and then not speak on behalf or against it when it comes to this. So I can see certainly that Councilmember Kennedy's perspective there, that maybe it shouldn't be one of us because we do have that final vote. I don't think it would create a conflict, but I think it would change at least how I approached the position on that board over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wyeth, remind us of the term. Some of these decisions matter less when they're a short term, but these are regular 4-year terms. Maybe the first one is like 3 years or something, right? So this is not a annual cycle on, cycle off deal. It's a pretty lasting commitment. Is that correct? Although we'd have the power to remove anybody, but that would be a big deal, of course.
Yeah, and Mayor, are asking about the terms for your representative or the terms? Because I guess I go back to what Gina had said, which is I don't, the county, the school district, and the city representative, again, and I don't know if this goes a different way here, but they're not, the way the statute appears to have been written and the way I understand that the direction was there, that you, yeah, you can continue to have the same person on there for as long as you decide you want that. You send that person to the board. And I think as an example, like Councilman Rips has just said, so in the downtown district, which has had a county and a school district and a city representative for a long, long time, like the school district representative, who's she's a trustee, Jana Hafer. She's been doing that for a really long time. She's not, there's no term limit. I mean, they send her back and she just keeps going. So I think that's something again, with these specific positions, that's part of what is I think is the intent. That the county sends somebody and you say, great, you're on there. And then until the county says, you know what, no, we need to pull that person off or we're going to change them up or whatever. So, and Gina can chime in, but I feel like that's the intent there. And I think that's also why it's confusing to me with this idea of just sort of a council or a city person who owns property. Like if you look at the resolutions, that's like most of who's already being put on there. So if you're going to put another one, you want to make sure it's clear that person is somehow different or doing something different, or otherwise it's just the same as everybody else who's got the very much like Councilmember Kennedy said. Yeah, we have people that are supposed to own property and have to have an interest in the district. Like they're on there. So if this is going to be another one, like what is the difference, I guess? So, so anyway, I see the appointed ones from the school, the county, and the city as being kind of their own thing.
They are, and Gina can comment, but I'm looking at section 3 of each resolution that specifically says that the City of Billings representative shall have an initial term of 3 years. So of course we could remove that person. It's a little unclear what happens after that initial 3-year period. I think the assumption was probably would go to 4 years, but anyway, it's 3 years. Gina, do you want to weigh in any way? No. Oh, okay. Councilor Rupsis?
Thank you, Mayor. Roy, I wonder
I do have a comment too. I don't know if anyone's seen my
Oh,
hand.
I apologize. Thank you.
I've already spoken. I'll go
Okay,
after Councilmember
Councilmember Shaw, go ahead, and then Councilmember Rupsis.
I don't mind waiting either till after Councilmember Roopsis, but I just wanted to chime in that good discussion. From what I'm hearing, I think it definitely should be either city staff or council. I would certainly advocate that we don't just put Ward 1 people on all of the boards. I think we should be selecting who among the body would be best on each one, instead of just trying to load those all up onto one, well, 2 people. Um, I have a toss up between whether I think it would be better to have an elected official or a city staff member. I like the symmetry of elected officials talking to elected officials. I think that, in my opinion, was the intention partially of the legislation. So that would lead me toward thinking it should be a council member. But Wyeth, my question for you is, how much time do you think it would take you or another staff member to sit on one of these advisory committees? Because I'd like a sense of, council, we can heap stuff onto our plates, but staff time is a very precious commodity.
Councilmember Shaw and Mayor and Council. So I already go now to all three of them as much as possible. Yeah, it's a lot of time. That's actually just going to the meetings is the easy part. It's all the process and everything to work through with applications and work with Dick and Heather and Katie and Mamet and the things that come to you and even the things that don't. So yeah, that's why we were sharing with you some of the operational ideas that we did several meetings back. There's definitely some room for improvement there and efficiency on the staff side, but yeah, that's right now I'm going to all of them. And so I would, at this point, under the current situation, assume I would just keep going.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Purposes?
Roy, last week or a couple weeks ago, whenever it was, you were advocating for making one of the positions somebody outside the ward. If we wanted to go away from a council member, which I would probably lean towards having a council member sit on the position, but if we wanted to go towards a more open application for that, I wonder if what's your thoughts on having that with the specific requirement of you do not live or own property and so that your role is to more think of citywide.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right. Thanks for sharing, by the way, how that would change, because I think that would be a really hard, difficult time to, and really have to be conscious that I am not fighting for my views, but for the city views. And so you have to think of city whole. And I think that if we were going to move out of a council member of that position, is similar to what we do with Heights Water District. We mayor appoints an individual for the Heights Water District, and then we hope that they're representing the city to the best that they can. But there's no real control over that because they're not at the meetings. They're not in the public works meeting, hearing from public works, so they don't really know everything about the city like we as council members. So I guess there is some good advantage of a council member being that individual. I think as long as that individual who is taking that understands that you kind of have to separate your personal representation views and take on the city reviews, and like you do now, where you kind of think, okay, I'm going to I kind of feel what the city, what the council is going to do, whether you may agree or not, then go with it. Same thing like with these districts. Now that they're here, we have to work with them, and so I think you all know I'm not a fan of TIF districts, but I work with them and I vote for projects because I can see the value and the benefit of those projects that are coming before us. So those are the kind of things I think that individual is going to have to do. Whether it's a city council member or another individual, they have to really stay in tune with the council to see what the council is going to do. Otherwise, they're going to constantly vote what their opinion is instead of actually kind of what the whole city would be.
Okay, Councilor Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. I see us going round and round as usual. How do we get out of this cycle? Do we end up voting on something, or is that what you want, Wyatt? Do you need some information tonight so that we don't debate this forever?
Councilmember Boyette, I mean, no, I think what we were just trying to do is have you start thinking this through. The boards obviously aren't appointed yet. We're going to get the applications, and there's going to be a point where you're going to have to say, okay, this is who's going now for the city. So, and others, Chris or Gina can chime in, but I think we were just trying to get this conversation going so that you could be thinking about that, so that when you get a little closer, you can say, okay, yeah, we've decided this is what we're going to do. So that's my thought.
So can we maybe agree on a process for selecting if it's going to be council members or not? And then maybe similar to what we do today is the mayor is the one who, we as council members, if we want to serve on a board, we make an application to the mayor. And then he, just like you'd have to look through the applications, who's the best of that one representation, and then choose that, and that would be the say. I don't know if it has to be affirmed by the council, but as long as they're council members.
I would certainly welcome whatever clarity on process and the end result that we can get here. Ultimately, that's how we would end up. But if the council definitely wants to move in a particular direction, we would want to know it, obviously. But
Although
having
I'd interject here, that's not actually how we do it right now. When we put each other on boards, we don't put in an application to the mayor. We vote on it among ourselves. So I think there is a contradiction there. I'm sorry to just interrupt, but I didn't know if anyone would see my hand.
if you mean if it's somebody within the council.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah, is there still, I'm not sure, do our resolutions adopt or address the process of this at all? Wyeth or Gina? They're shaking their heads, no.
Not for the council. No, not for the council, county or school district ones. That's why.
Yeah, I think we can do whatever we want,
call.
whatever
Yeah.
you want. Yeah, and I think we're, for what we're hearing from staff, we can do what we want here.
And this is a little different than, I think you guys are generally referring to when you're creating a council subcommittee and you're choosing amongst you who's going to be on it. This is a different kind of advisory committee. It's required by statute. So it's different. I think, like the mayor just said, you guys can decide how you want to do it.
But so do we need to get a piece of paper and have 3 different choices and pass it around like we do in school? I mean, is that what?
I was gonna just say really quick, and I don't know how exactly you do this, but like just as an example, so like Councilmember Boyette is the representative for the Beartooth RC&D. Somehow, however you did that, that's kind of what I was envisioning you would do for this. So I can't remember.
I volunteered. I was the only one.
I thought there was some. Okay, I thought there was some.
Recommend people make a volunteer that I'd like to be on the board to the mayor, and the mayor, 1, 2, or 3 gets to pick.
If the choice of the council is to limit those to only council members, but that's a threshold determination that I don't think has been made yet. So, but I agree, if it's the council, we should start by who's willing to serve or who would like to serve. And then we also haven't discussed about whether that person should be the same person on all 3 boards, which seems like a lot, or a different person for each board. We also haven't talked about whether it could be somebody who is an outside expert called, or somebody who has some special expertise, or 3 different people. Just to pick somebody from random, maybe somebody who was formerly involved with economic development and dealing with the TIF districts, and who has recently retired and has some time on his hand, and whose last name starts with an A. But other than that, people like that might be possibilities as well, at least for one of the positions. But
when do we need to decide this, Wyatt?
The night that appointments are made. I mean, that would be the latest the decision can be made when you appoint the board. Well, we're going to get this all wrapped up. And by November is what our schedule is, October, November. So either make a motion tonight, say we're going to do it this way amongst the 7 of you, or decide then.
Mayor, you bring up a good point about someone like Steve. He's very knowledgeable in that whole industry. Yeah, whether he wants to or not.
He's not here, so that.
And there could be others like him, but if we were to open it up to them, you'd have to look at the applications and are they qualified, and then determine whether they are or not, and if they're really going to follow. Then what's their accountability back to the council? I guess during the TIF proposals, but I don't know. I like the idea of that, but at the same time, I'm not sure where that would go. As much as I think there's some problems with being council, I think that may be the better option in my view.
we have some expertise about how we can appoint each other, right? So however this decision is made, probably the most important aspect is a desire to serve and a willingness to serve. So I would encourage us to, at a minimum, get the word out and see who's out there who would like to serve internally on the council, but also in the community, and that might clarify it. So at least.
Mayor?
And we do have a yellow hand by Councilmember Owen, so go Councilmember Owen.
Thanks, Mayor. I just very quickly wanted to share a perspective, not to belabor the point, but I'm concerned we're wandering a little bit. From my perspective, I think the fairest reading of the statute is the focus on impacted taxing jurisdictions. It's certainly not the exclusive purpose of the bill, but that's the language that's used often, right? Impacted taxing jurisdictions. And so I would hope that we do confine the city's representative to someone who speaks from the perspective of a taxing jurisdiction. What's the impact of this project or that project? Certainly the counties and the school district come from a different position than the city does because they don't vote as we do to approve the projects. But I think a council person or a senior staff like the city administrator, assistant city administrator, finance director, planning director, they speak from the city's perspective as a taxing jurisdiction. And I wouldn't want us to lose sight of that. So that would be, I think, while it's not required by the statute, it would be my recommendation moving forward.
Very good. Thank you for pointing that out. Point well taken. Councilor, are we ready to make any sort of determinations here, or are we going to let this one percolate a little bit? I'm not seeing consensus exactly, but Councilor Kenny?
I would like to have just a little bit of time because I'd like to talk to a couple of the legislators who push the legislation because there's a certain reason why this came up. And a lot of it is because cities and counties, or not cities, but counties and school districts, they did not see that they had a voice. And the cities were able to push these through and as we got to vote on them. So I would really like to find out what their real intent is, because if they went to this degree to make these changes, we better find out that if you're going to appoint a council person or you're going to appoint a staff person, I just don't want to have to come back next legislative session because I would like them to leave the TIFs alone. So.
Okay, that's an argument for sitting on this one for a while. If there's no motion, we will. We haven't had an opportunity for public comment, so let's do that. When in doubt, stall. So we've got a few minutes for public comment. Would anybody like to enlighten us with their direction on this? If so, this is your opportunity. Come to the podium and just ask that you tell us who you are and keep your comments to roughly 3 minutes. Is there any public comment on this item number 2?
I don't know, you probably hear me anyway. I'm Dick Zier, I'm the. Oh, yeah. Where's it go? Okay. I'm Dick Zier, I'm the Suburban representative, the consultant, or whatever you want to call it. But I'd recommend whoever you put on the board is somebody that's really interested in what we're doing down there and that wants to be there. I understand that there's been some problem getting people from the county to go to the downtown one. They don't show up. So whoever you do, and I'm willing to work with any of you guys. I don't think there's a problem that way, but have somebody that's really interested in it, because we got a lot of good things going down there and we want to keep the momentum going. And, we're in favor of this expansion. We're also in favor, we've agreed to do what we need to do to meet the state law. So like I say, whoever you put on there, make sure they want to be there and not just going through the motion.
Very good, thank you. Point well taken. Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment on this item? Okay, no one's coming forward, so we'll close the public comment period. Council will hold this for another day unless there's any further discussion or motion. Okay, I think that's a wrap then on item 2. Chris, highlighting upcoming agenda items.
Just kind of business as usual. I'm trying to think as we just went over things earlier today. The TIF expansion, obviously, we've covered that earlier tonight. Oh, thank you. Yep. So one of the applications downtown, the timeline, it's the Billings hardware property right along the railroad tracks. That timeline is running out, but it's my understanding all the financing now is actually being aligned. So there's a request to you to extend that period. That's probably the most influential thing coming up in the near term. And we're beginning the process on the capital improvement plan. I'm looking a few months down the road, but before you know it, it's going to be October and November. And we always try to get it adopted before the end of the year. So that, I think, is the most influential policy decision is the capital improvement planning process.
Okay, Councilor Kennedy had a question on that.
No, I just have a question on, and I was reminded tonight because of the, as the district was, it's the area, Wilson Park. So what I was asked is the animal shelter being asked to leave their building at the end of this year?
No.
Okay. Because I've heard from several people saying the city is asking them to move out at the end of the year.
No, I think what may be, it's speculation on my part that what's being misinterpreted is our contract with the shelter for services had a period of time to it. I don't recall the first one. Let's say it was a 3-year or a 5-year contract with a handful of 1-year extensions. The last of those extensions expires a year from now. So we do have a request for proposals out on the street for them and anyone else to reply to get a new long-term contract in place. So my guess is someone's misinterpreting that we're trying to push them out.
I would just hope we're not trying to push them out.
No, we do not want to be in the animal shelter business. I'm eternally grateful to have them doing what they're doing and them fundraising for it. I've only, personally, professionally, I've only seen far more successful models in a relationship like this than to have the city running an animal shelter.
And I would just hope that we would want them to be there until they finally build their new place. So.
And after that, well, for many years after they build their new place, for sure.
Thank you.
But if each of us takes 10 dogs, you know, okay, probably 20 cats. Yeah. Okay. Council discussion. Anything else? Then public comment on non-agenda items. Any items not on our agenda? No. Before I adjourn, Chris, did you have something else? No. Okay, then we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.